You finally make it home after a grueling day. Your brain is fried, and you just want to collapse on the couch to decompress. The distraction gives you a psychological break, but zoning out to a video game or a TV show doesn't actually shut down your body's internal stress response. Researchers wanted to measure this gap between feeling relaxed and actually being relaxed. They set up a clinical study comparing two groups. One practiced specific mindfulness training, while the other used active control techniques, essentially structured distraction and problem solving. When they asked the participants how they felt afterward, the subjective results were identical. Both groups reported massive drops in their stress levels. Everyone felt better. But this chart reveals the hidden biological reality. While the subjective stress dropped equally for both groups at the top, the bottom graph tracks specific inflammatory markers in the body. For the distracted group, those markers stayed dangerously high. For the mindfulness group, they plummeted. Left unchecked, that hidden inflammation creates something called allostatic load. This is the cumulative wear and tear on your organs and cells caused by a physiological stress response that never actually turns off. Distraction only masks the symptoms. To actually protect our health, we need a mechanism that reaches into our cells and turns off the biological alarm system. Down at the cellular level, chronic stress constantly trips an alarm bell known as the NF-kappa B pathway, pushing the body into constant baseline inflammation. Dedicated mind-body practices like yogic meditation physically flip that switch in reverse. They suppress the inflammatory alarm and simultaneously ramp up a pathway called IRF1, which boosts your innate antiviral defenses. These epigenetic changes happen rapidly. Researchers found shifts in gene expression after a single 8-hour intensive session, and even with brief daily practices. The immediate result is a much faster recovery of baseline cortisol levels after a stressful event. We know which genes are silenced. The practice targets pro-inflammatory genes labeled RIPK2 and COX2, acting as a physical mechanism to turn them off. Familiar? COX2 and RIPK2 are the exact genetic pathways that over-the-counter anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen are designed to inhibit. Meditation is an objective, targeted form of biological editing. Zooming out from our DNA to the architecture of the brain itself, we see the next layer of damage. Chronic stress traps us in self-referential negative narrative loops, hyperactivating specific neural networks. A healthy brain relies on a protein called BDNF to build and repair neurons. Chronic stress depletes your BDNF reserves. Without it, the fear processing center, the amygdala, expands, while the regions responsible for memory and learning actually shrink. Regular mind-body interventions actively force the brain to produce more BDNF. This chemical flood ensures neuronal survival and triggers synaptic plasticity, forming new connections. With elevated BDNF, the brain starts wiring itself differently. It builds thicker, stronger connections between your executive control centers, the rational part of your brain, and the deep internal regulatory networks. You physically upgrade the hardware inside your skull, shifting the brain's default setting from a rigid threat response into a flexible state of growth. This biological editing echoes throughout the entire circulatory system. When you experience psychological stress, your body produces IL-6, a primary biomarker for whole-body inflammation. High levels of IL-6 are particularly dangerous because they can cross the highly restrictive blood-brain barrier. They take a localized stress reaction in your body and pump physical inflammation directly into your brain tissue. Clinical data links this precise type of neuroinflammation to serious psychiatric vulnerabilities. Elevated IL-6 in the brain is a driving factor behind severe clinical depression, deep motivational impairment, and early symptoms of psychosis. Clinical trials demonstrate that engaging in consistent mind-body practices actively drives down systemic IL-6 levels in the blood. By cooling off whole-body inflammation, you build a systemic shield. You stop the physical damage of stress in the bloodstream before it ever has the chance to reach your brain's delicate chemistry. Modern molecular science validates what clinical pioneers suspected decades ago. In the 1970s, Dr. Herbert Benson observed these massive physiological shifts and coined the term the relaxation response. He defined it as an objective, hypometabolic state. By actively lowering heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen consumption, the body enters a biological mirror image of the fight or flight response. Today, we understand how vital that state is for emerging frontiers like the glymphatic system. This is a newly understood network that washes away toxic metabolic waste from your brain while you are in deep sleep. To take advantage of this, integrate a brief mind-body tool into your evening routine. Lowering your allostatic load right before bed gives your glymphatic system the pristine biological environment it needs to scrub your brain clean. Prioritize daily consistency over long durations. The research shows that short, regular interventions are all it takes to trigger those epigenetic switches and keep inflammation genes turned down. True relaxation is a highly specific, measurable state. Once you learn to engage it, you have the internal tools to rewrite your biology, slow cellular aging, and protect your mind and body for the long haul.